Hey everyone and welcome. Today we are going to tackle something super important but often tricky, the unspoken rules of the American workplace. We're going to cover the entire journey, right from landing your first job to leaving on a really high note. So if you've ever wanted to know what really makes the US professional world tick, you're in the right place.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with how to craft that perfect American-style resume. Then we'll talk about how to absolutely nail the interview. From there, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of daily office etiquette, what to wear, and finally, how to make a really graceful exit when it's time to move on.
All right, first up, your resume. You've got to understand that in the US, this piece of paper is way more than just a list of your skills. It is your very first chance to tell a story about your ambition.
And this, right here, gets to the absolute heart of the American work philosophy. See, having a job, any job, is seen as a huge positive. It tells an employer that you're committed, you're responsible, and you have a solid work ethic. And believe me, that's something every single employer is looking for.
Okay, and this is where things get really interesting, especially when you look at it from a global perspective. In the US, you put that Starbucks job on your resume and it shows you've got initiative. But in a place like South Korea, for example, that same job might actually be seen as, not serious enough for a professional resume. It's such a fascinating contrast in what different cultures value, isn't it? So this idea of showing any kind of work experience is tied to a concept that American companies really value. It's called hutzbah. It's a Yiddish word, and it basically means audacity, or having that willingness to just go for it and take risks. When you show you've worked a job that might seem beneath your education, it shows you've got chutzpah.
Okay, so your awesome resume landed you the interview. Fantastic news. Now comes the big part. How'd you make the absolute best impression when you're finally face-to-face?
So you might get a question that feels, well, a little personal, like this one. But it's not just small talk. What the interviewer is really trying to do is get a feel for your personality and how do you actually approach your work. Are you a super meticulous planner, or are you more of a go-with-the-flow kind of person?
Now the key here, and this is so important, is to frame your personality as a professional strength. So if you're type A, you're not uptight. No, you're highly organized, you're punctual, you're an overachiever. And trust me, in the American workplace, those are all considered major compliments.
And here is a super simple but incredibly powerful tip. Always arrive with a prepared packet. Having your resume, your cover letter, and your recommendations all ready to go just screams that you're organized and that you respect the interviewer's time. It's a small thing that makes a huge difference.
Okay, you did it. You got the job. That's awesome. Congratulations. But now you've got a whole new challenge, figuring out all those unwritten rules of daily life in an American office.
One of the trickiest situations you can find yourself in is having to deal with office gossip. Let's be real, it happens everywhere, and knowing how to handle it gracefully is a seriously key professional skill.
So picture this. Your colleague, let's call him Dan, comes up to you and tries to drag you into some negative talk about your manager, Mr. West. He's basically looking for someone to agree with him to back him up. So what do? And here is the perfect response, really. This is the professional playbook in action. Notice how Priya doesn't get aggressive, but she doesn't go along with it either. She just politely shuts it down and states the principle: gossiping is bad etiquette. This move right here, it really highlights that American cultural preference for being direct and solving problems, not just complaining about them.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about something just as critical for making a good impression: your appearance. In the modern workplace, the rules for what to wear aren't always as clear-cut as they used to be.
This is probably the #1 question people have. And the good news is, while day-to-day office dress codes can be all over the place, the rule for a job interview is actually refreshingly simple and consistent.
Listen, it doesn't matter how casual the company's website looks, you always dress formally for an interview. That means a dark suit for men and a suit for women. Why? Because it sends a crystal clear message: I am a serious person and I take this opportunity very seriously. You can always dress down later, but you only get one shot at a first impression.
So, once you're hired, you're probably going to run into one of these 3 dress codes. Business formal, that's exactly what it sounds like, a full suit. Then there's business casual, which usually just means no jeans. Think khakis and a polo or a nice shirt. And then casual, where jeans and t-shirts are generally okay, just as long as they're clean and presentable.
So what's the bottom line here? It's this. If you're ever not sure, just look around. Pay attention to what your colleagues are wearing, and honestly, when in doubt,
Just ask. Asking HR or your manager just shows that you care and that you want to get it right.
All right, let's talk about the final chapter of your journey at a company. How you leave a job is every bit as important as how you start it. It can have a huge impact on your professional reputation for years to come.
There is a very clear professional way to resign. Number one, you should always tell your direct manager first, preferably in a face-to-face conversation. Second, you give the standard 2 weeks notice. This gives them time to start planning for your replacement. And finally, you follow up that conversation with a formal letter. If you follow these steps, you won't burn any bridges.
Now, when you have that conversation, your tone is everything. In our little story, Priya makes a point to thank her manager, Mr. West, for the opportunity he gave her. She explains she's leaving to join her family's business, which is a clear, professional reason that has nothing to do with being unhappy at the company. It's really the perfect example of a respectful exit.
And this is the payoff for leaving the right way. Because Priya handled her resignation so professionally, her manager literally tells her, the door is always open. She's kept a valuable professional connection, and her reputation is sparkling. That is the ultimate goal of a graceful exit.
So, to wrap it all up, being successful in the American workplace really comes down to understanding the culture behind the rules, that value placed on ambition, on being direct, and even on having a little bit of that hutzbah. Which leaves us with a final question to think about. How do these norms compare to your own experiences, and what do they tell us about the broader culture of work?